I really believe my life is in jeopardy when I'm active. To the maximum extent of my food addiction and drug use, I might not live. And I got people to take care of. So I don't have the luxury of playing around with these things.
Food Addiction is a podcast that explores the disease of food addiction and presents the solution. We interview professionals and counselors who specialize in the disease of food addiction as a substance use disorder. And we interview individuals who have successfully recovered from food addiction and discuss how they did it. Esther Helga Goodman-Stotier was motivated to change careers after she recovered from food addiction by opening a food addiction treatment center and the INFACT School, the International School for Food Addiction Counseling and Treatment. It is the world's first and only evidence-based training for counselors, nutritionists, therapists, and medical professionals that provides training in the effective treatment of food addiction as a substance use disorder. Students receive an internationally recognized credential as a Certified Food Addiction Professional, CFAP. Check out the website at infactschool.com, INFACT school.com, for more information on obtaining the certification in proven food addiction recovery programs. Listen to these episodes as we discuss the problem and the solution to food addiction. I'm Susan Branscombe. I am a recovered food addict and the host of this podcast, Food Addiction, the Problem and the Solution, owned by INFACT School. Today, we welcome Mike Fetherston. Welcome, Mike.
Good to be with you.
Yeah, I'm excited about getting into your story. I'm going to introduce you, and then we're going to talk about your story and your journey, what it was like, and how you identify in terms of your addiction recoveries. Mike Fetherston is a certified food addiction counselor with this designation from the INFACT School, the owner of this podcast. He has a full-time career, yet works part-time with Milestones in Recovery. That website is milestonesprogram.org, and Milestones is one of our most loyal sponsors. For the last 3.5 years, he has led a program at Milestones called Cooking with Mike, which integrates culinary skills with food addiction recovery. He also is a yoga teacher. So welcome again, Mike.
Good to be with you.
Well, you have an inspiring story of just resilience, not giving up, and wanting a different life. And we met before, and that's what I gathered from you, is that, you just don't give up. You wanted something different. So I'd like to start talking about your story. You were almost 53 years old. Your first sobriety being clean from drugs and alcohol. You're like many food addicts like me. We are multi-addicted. And you got sober first, like I did, and it was in 2005. So talk about that and that recovery.
Sure. I'm a cross-addicted, addict, a drug addict, alcoholic, and food addict. I look at my food addiction now, I didn't then, but I look at that as like the primary addiction, the alpha and the omega. But my recovery from food addiction really started with me obtaining recovery from alcohol and drugs back in 2005. So, in 2005, I was in a really terrible place. I was in my early 30s at the time with my alcohol and drug use. I, at that time, was unemployed. I was in all sorts of legal trouble, DUIs, and unemployable. I was one step away from being homeless, and I could not stop drinking and using drugs, even though I had been trying probably for a couple of years through many stints back and forth in AA and just trying to figure out how to stop drinking and using drugs, and just couldn't. So one day, really, I look at my sobriety from drugs and alcohol and from food as a miracle. And one day, unexpectedly, I went to an AA meeting one night, like many before, and I was in a horrible place. I hated myself. I had just nothing going for me and didn't have any hope. But I picked up a white chip like I had before. I picked up a number of them up to that day. And for whatever reason, God, I have a relationship with a higher power I call God, and God did for me what I couldn't do for myself, and that was May 5th of 2005. 5/5 of '05 was my day that I gave.
Yeah, what got you in there? Friend or?
What got me in there? I had started going to AA. I got sober at 32. My first AA meeting was at 19. And, at 19, I wasn't ready. I didn't go back for many years, but I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
I had struggles with my alcohol use from a time I was a teenager. And just, I don't know, somebody said, go to AA. I don't remember how I got introduced to it,
Yeah.
but
What were your drugs of choice?
my drugs of choice were alcohol. I was a round the clock marijuana smoker. I did a lot of cocaine. I was like a garbage can. Luckily, I never really got into opiates, but was just, I would say primarily more than anything else, it was alcohol, marijuana, a lot of cocaine, a lot of hallucinogens. But alcohol and marijuana, were probably the mainstays, for me. That alcohol got me in the most trouble, I'd say.
You said food addiction is your primary addiction. Were you a food addict? Can you see it now before you used alcohol? Did you use it when
Oh
you were
yeah,
using
oh
alcohol and
yeah.
drugs?
One of my first memories in life was when I was 2.5 years old. Literally, one of my first memories in life was somehow I started picking up chewed gum from the sidewalk and eating it, and that my mother would scold me for this. And for quite a while, I continued to do this despite getting in trouble. I think I was, I don't know how we all get this differently, but I never had a normal relationship with food. And I, struggled with food throughout my entire childhood. My family's socialization revolved around the dinner table. I come from a family of borderline and full blown food addicts, even though it's not fair for me to identify them, but that's where I come from. And I was always getting in trouble as a kid for sneaking in the fridge, taking extra food. From an early age, I started stealing money from my mom's purse so I could go to the store and buy candy. I mean, not things necessarily that normal people do, but like I just love food. I always wanted to feel as full as I could feel. It was just something that came naturally to me. So, yeah, during the many years of my struggle with drugs and alcohol, I was a guy who did lots of cocaine, yet I weighed 300 pounds. So like there was always a way, like I was a bar drinker. I loved to go out and rage and drink and do drugs. But at the end of the night, I would always stop at Walmart or the fast food, and I would always finish my night off with a binge of food, even when I was doing cocaine and stuff. So yeah, the food was always there.
Yeah, they go together. We do it at the same time, and it sounds like you got sober in 2005. You put it down, and then the food probably, like me, accelerated, and I really got to a point where I was very overweight, and it sounds like you did too. I have in my notes that in 2008 you entered a 12-step recovery program for food. Is that right?
Yeah.
Tell me about
About
that.
3 years after I got sober in AA, 2 to 3 years is when I started going to the 12-step food recovery meetings and became almost a daily attendee of those meetings shortly after I started. Um, just one other thing to mention, just about the childhood. I don't want to go too into it, but I started drinking and using drugs at 15. And I really think that because I was overweight, because I really struggled with my eating and my self-esteem, that was a big catalyst for me to use alcohol because it made me feel better about myself. And a big part of my struggle with self-esteem stemmed from being an overweight kid as a result of my eating.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to share
Yeah.
that, part as well.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that. Yeah, I mean, there are studies that say the younger someone starts drinking, the more likely they are to be have issues with alcohol and be alcoholics. And the teenage years are very tough. I started drinking at about 14, and it was a way for me to feel normal for the first time, just take the anxiety away. Was that your experience?
Yeah, I felt like it made me feel stronger, smarter, and better looking.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Whether it's true or not, I mean, back then it's like, okay, I just
I
felt,
don't think it was true,
yeah,
but it made me feel,
made you
maybe it
feel
made me
that
feel
way.
that way. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what we
Yeah.
do to get away from the feelings, and it's such a hormones are going on and all of this stuff. And I was using food and alcohol at 14, so didn't know it was not my fault in terms of the addiction, but I think you could probably identify with that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. But the food was definitely there before
Yeah.
that, for sure.
So there's more to your journey. Many of us as food addicts, even alcoholics, were not fully ready. You had some fits and starts with food and drugs and alcohol. I understand your company, Milestones, in recovery. You've been there 3 times. You lost weight, but you said, if I have this right, you had one foot out the door. So tell me about the journey to get you to the point where you are now, fully surrendered.
Well, from my first meeting, let's say in 2008, until my sobriety, which what I consider my sobriety from my food addiction in 2018, that's 10 years. I considered myself to be a chronic relapser during that time, but in reality, I actually never had real sobriety from my food addiction during that 10-year period. So, yes, I went on 3 different occasions as an inpatient in treatment for my food addiction. Um, I also have binge eating disorder and bulimia, which I picked up bulimia much later in life. But I am first and foremost a food addict, but went to treatment, inpatient, 30-day stints in treatment on 3 different occasions, and went to well over 1,000 of the 12-step food meetings. One fellowship mostly, but I tried many different ones from the eating, and I could just never get it. I could never stick with anything. I had the best sponsors. I had lots of sponsors. I had really good support. I had a lot of knowledge and information. I had worked the steps in AA, and I had a pretty good knowledge of the big book of AA and 12-step recovery. And I just could never get it. And just like, not everybody who struggles, has struggles with their weight, but, typically I was 100 pounds more than I am now consistently for decades. No matter what I did, that was true for me, not for everybody. But
Right.
that was part of my story.
What? How tall are you?
I'm 5'10".
5'10". So you had 100. I think I saw here 100 up to 150 pounds of excess weight, or was it 100?
I am about 150 pounds lower than my heaviest weight now.
Okay, yeah, that's what I.
For maintaining that for a number of years now.
So you had all the everything in place, the meetings, the support, the 30-day recovery program at Milestones, but like I tell sponsees, I can't recover for you. What do you think was standing in your way from truly surrendering? You said you hadn't had true abstinence. What was going on?
I think that number one, there were several things over all of those years that I consider to be borderline foods and behaviors that are part of like my alcoholism with food. One of the challenging things about food addiction is alcohol addiction recovery is very hard, very hard. But one of the challenging things about food is that, what is the actual drug? What is it? Because it can, most people have a lot of commonalities with what the drug is. It's, added sugar, refined carbohydrates, volume in many cases. But then there are some exceptions and differences which can vary slightly or greatly from person to person. So for me, for all of those years, there were a few things that I held on to that in my case, not everybody's, but in my case, were part of the drug for me. And until I was able to let them go, I don't believe I would have been able to get sober. That was one part of it. In my case, those were artificial sweeteners and diet sodas. Now, like I am careful. Like I teach cooking classes at Milestones. I've worked with a lot of people over the years individually. My partner can have some sweeteners and diet sodas, and she's able to maintain her recovery. My partner's one of us as well. Um, but in my case, I was never able to moderate the sweeteners and the diet sodas, and it was almost like, and it was a big deal for me, very big deal for me. It always kept me with one foot in because I have a food plan that for many people, they allow them to have six sweeteners a day and two 12-ounce cans of diet sodas. Mike would never be able to stick with that. And I would quickly go to 20 something sweeteners a day and then 6 to 12 diet sodas a day. And I said, well, this is allowed. It's a loophole. It's fine. But I would always go back to the sugar and the flour and then full on binging, which in my case is like 10,000 calories, 15,000 calories a day sometimes. I mean, like absolute destruction behavior for me.
Yeah.
So,
well, I think what I hear you saying is what triggers one person may not trigger another. I mean, alcohol, drugs, you just don't put them in your body. Okay, that's easy. But what we say in food addiction is if you're eating 3 meals a day, you're letting the tiger out of the cage 3 times a day. Unless you're eating an abstinent food plan, weighed and measured if you need to do that. But artificial sweeteners can be a problem. I mean, sugar is a big one. That's the main one. When you're abstinent, you take sugar out. Some people can't handle flour or grains. I think you said you could. I can. So it's different for different people. And but you still, like you said,
I can handle grains, but not flour.
Not flour, grains. Okay.
Yeah. No. For me, So, there's a number of food plans that exist out there in the world from some of the 12-step communities, from some of the eating disorder or food addiction treatment programs, not eating disorder, food addiction. And there's a lot of commonalities between them, typically some level of refraining from sugar and refined carbohydrates is part of the plan. And in many cases, it's identifying them on an ingredient list. So on my plan, and not just mine, many others, sugar, added sugar, refined carbohydrates are the 4th or 5th ingredient or below on an ingredient list. And that's how it's identified as abstinent or not.
Yeah.
In my case, I identify those as the 5th ingredient or below.
Yes. Me too.
Now, the way that I identified this was I did an assignment essentially called the red and yellow light trigger food identification assignment. I don't know, you've probably heard of that, but
red light foods, yellow light foods.
So it's an assignment where you essentially list all of your clear-cut trigger foods, and then you list all of your what you consider to be borderline trigger foods and behaviors. And through that assignment with somebody who was really experienced in working with people on that, I was able to, assess, identify what my sobriety actually was.
Right. So, I've got a couple of dates here. I've got sober from drugs and alcohol 2005, went to a food addiction recovery meeting in 2008. May of 2018, I've got April 2012, August of 2022. I've got some different dates. So take us through to where you are now, if you can, just kind of like what you learned. I have something called kratom and binging, and you went back to marijuana and gained 50 pounds. So talk about that before we talk about when you finally fully surrendered.
Yeah. So in 2018, I got sober from my food addiction, lost the weight, maintained it for a few years, and, everything was good. I think I got a little cocky and maybe bored. Things couldn't have been any better really on paper, but one night I went out. I really stopped going to meetings. like during COVID, and everything kind of went to Zoom, and I just didn't really resonate with that. I One night I went out with some friends who I knew from my yoga practices, and tried this stuff called kratom and kava. They have in South Florida where I live many bars that sell these. I think they're roots that they grind up. They're from like I don't know, Southeast Asia or something.
Okay.
But anyway,
Are they sweet?
they're not sweet. There's no sugar. They're
Okay.
disgusting. They're not a. It's not a food thing.
Okay.
It's a mind altering thing.
Oh, I see.
So so I went out and I had this one night, and I considered it somehow to be a loophole in my alcohol and drug recovery after 15 years or whatever it was at the time. And I became addicted to this stuff called kratom. It's legal. It's not like, I have to go to somewhere to get it. You can get it anywhere. And it's kind of like a mild opiate. And I really, because I'm an addict, became addicted to it. And within a short period of time, I let my guard down further and started smoking marijuana after 15 or 16 years of not doing it. This all started in 2022. The marijuana led me to be sloppy with the food, and pretty much when I would smoke marijuana, I was the ideal weight for myself, and I felt like, I don't know, I just got cocky. And the marijuana led me to start playing with my food a bit. And then one day I had a binge. And that was like somewhere in the mid July of 2022. The kratom led me to the marijuana. The marijuana led me to the food, and all of my binging really was coupled with marijuana use. But over a year period from July of 2022 until August of 2023, I was really stuck in a rough cycle with this kratom, the marijuana. I almost drank. I did not drink, but I almost did. And then the food, with some really significant binging, over the course of that year. And it was very hard for me to let that go.
Anybody that's smoked pot knows that we get the munchies, right? It does increase your appetite. I don't know why, but it does, right? And then, it sounds like that's what was going on.
Yeah, and that's what happened. And I just considered, in my mind, because I just justified, when I smoked, I'm like, I can eat, and as long as I'm not eating when I'm not smoking, and Mike should not be smoking any marijuana or doing any minor mood altering, but I, opened the door for this.
You rationalized it.
And over that next year, I gained 50 pounds, and I just went back to meetings, but I couldn't let it go for a whole year, just over a year. I really just struggled to let go of that relapse. It was a relapse.
Yeah. Did you go back to Milestones then for another 30-day treatment?
I did not.
You did not? Okay.
No, I did not. I just went back to meetings, and a big part of my struggles were these kava bars, which many people may not know what they are, and you're probably better off not knowing, but it's like an alcohol bar, but they don't serve alcohol. They just serve these exotic teas and, mild, mood altering drinks and stuff, and they're not sweet. There's like no.
They're not sweet. It's just really another kava, kratom, whatever. It's these are mind.
They get you high. They get you. Yeah. They like give you this calm, euphoric feeling. So for me, I never added sugar or anything to them. They're actually disgusting tasting. Not a tasty thing. No.
Well, let's talk about your date. When we finally said, okay, I've had enough, and I'm really going to do this. And we all say one day at a time. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but for today, I'm abstinent, you're abstinent, and we get to live a different life. Tell me about the binging and bulimia, because if most, I don't want to say most, it's broad brush. I don't have any science to back this up. But when I think of bulimics, I think of females mostly. But you would consume 10,000 calories, but then you would get rid of it. Talk about the bulimia.
All right. So in my early 40s, I'm not what you would consider to be a typical bulimic, and there's many men, believe it or not, who struggle, with this, usually in silence. But
yeah,
I'm a football loving, sport playing, typical
you're a guy's guy.
But in my early 40s, so historically, I am a hardcore binger. Like when I'm really active in my food addiction, Mike, without the bulimia, is binging frequently 10,000 calories, sometimes more, to the point of where I'm in significant pain from the binging. So throughout my life, I would try and throw it up. I'd try and alleviate that. And one night in my early 40s, it worked. I had binged, like many times before, I was in a lot of pain, and I was able to throw it up. And I was like, wow. This is, I don't feel this pain anymore, and I can actually go back to eating. So that added a whole new dimension to my food addiction and eating disorder, and from that point, it wasn't all the time. I didn't purge all the time when I binged, but I would frequently, when I did, I would purge 20 times in a day.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty common for people with bulimia. Like you eat some, then you get rid of it, then you eat more, and you get rid of, what I mean? And it's,
did you have any health problems from this? Teeth, esophagus, anything like that?
Nothing that was diagnosed. I never saw any doctors for this. There were times when I would puke, vomit some blood, and I would get these gushing bloody noses. And there were some times when I would actually pass out. Like there were a couple times where I would pass out and I'd wake up and I'd be like, not knowing where I was. So that added a whole nother level to my challenge and problem. And like bulimia is a whole other issue. Many people who are food addicts do struggle with that, but just the ability to just continue to eat. I was never a guy that can control my weight. When I was active in my bulimia, I actually gained more weight because I was never able to get rid of it all. And then my digestive system would be all messed up as a result of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Marty Lerner, who heads Milestones in Recovery, has said that every eating disorder he's seen, binge eating disorder, bulimia, I guess even anorexia, has some underlying basis in food addiction. And we know food addiction, on this podcast is a brain disease, dopamine, just like alcohol. We ingest it, we want more, we have withdrawal. If we don't have it, we have cravings. So there's a bodily change. And with other things like the eating disorders, their behaviors, and food addicts have behaviors around food, we know. So there's a lot of overlap here. So it can be kind of confusing. But let's go to, do you have anything to say about that?
Only that I never had a plan to go and just, like my plan, like because it's insanity. Mike being active in his food addiction, like to the extent of the binging that I would do, is insane. And like I would go into it planning on buying such a crazy amount of food and knowing that, okay, I'm going to do this much, I'm going to let go of some of it, and then I'm going to keep going. And I mean, it was part of my food addiction, the purging. It was never about the purging or controlling my weight, but it was always about more and more food, like getting the absolute highest I could with the food.
Yeah. I was a volume eater too. And, I just love the feeling of feeling full and feeling more full, and use diuretics and laxatives. So that's bulimic behavior. Well, let's talk about the hope. And, we talked about what it was like. What is your abstinence date? It's fairly recent, isn't it? 2023, 24?
Yeah, well, it was August of 2023, August 22nd of 2023.
Yeah, so coming on 2 years.
Yep. Yep. I really, and that year long relapse, I really, I really don't focus so much on like the time because, I've had 20 years without a drink. I'm not sober for 20 years. You know what I mean? Like the badge of honor that like I used to say, even though I was like not sober because I was binging 10,000 calories a day, but I'm sober. So like I put less emphasis on that than the quality of my recovery, from day to day.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And I don't mean to say that you haven't been abstinent very long, but it's been 2 years.
My life really changed May of 2018. And I took some steps back in a year, but I didn't like lose the recovery that I had. And, thank God, August of 2023, I was able to get my sobriety back because I might not be here today for sure.
Right. When we talk about in our 12-step recovery programs, that it is insane what we do, with food. And it is insane to be so overweight and still eating. And then we come into 12-step recovery and realize that we're powerless. So talk about what your recovery has been like since then. It sounds like it's high quality. You have a partner and you have a child and one on the way. So it just sounds like you've got a kind of life by the butt right now.
Yeah. It's life is really good, for the most part, materially, in many ways since 2018, it's been really good. And thank God, since 2023, I've been able to get back to it because my wife was, several months pregnant at the time and I still couldn't put down the food and the behavior. So getting back on track is like a miracle. I really do look at it that way. So yeah, I've got a great life, a wonderful partner. I will say that when I was active in my food addiction, there were many years when I was alone, many years when I just, was celibate, not by choice, but, by virtue of being active. And, my sobriety has allowed me to have some great partners over the years and my beautiful partner today, having a son in my early 50s, I just love being a dad. My son is 20 months old. 3 years ago, who would have thought that? It wasn't in the plans for me, but it's just been as great a thing as I've ever experienced. I have another son on the way.
Yeah, nice. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, we're almost halfway there, 18 weeks in. And my food, I'm in a good place with my food. I think from a weight standpoint, like one thing I like to say is when I was in early recovery from my food addiction, let's say 2 months in, back in 2018, I was still well over 300 pounds, but I was in recovery and feeling good and feeling positive and feeling hopeful. So recovery is not really just about the weight. So now I'm at a pretty healthy weight. I have been for years now. And, that's really wonderful. But what's even better, not even better, it's equally good, is feeling peace and neutrality with my relationship with the food. I just eat, I follow my food plan.
You weigh and measure?
I do. I weigh and measure and have structure around the amount, as I said, the amount of sugar and added things that I eat. So yeah, I have a food plan.
Yeah, many times as volume eaters, we have to weigh and measure our food because we can't trust our eyes. And so we need some structure and discipline there. And I'll add here that on the InFact School website, there are a number of recovery programs listed. They're not all 12 steps. Some of them are, not 12 step. So that's how, that's how I recovered. And it sounds like that's how you recovered. But let me ask you this before we go into some of the other things I want to talk about. What would you say you learned from 2018 to August of 2023? What is the biggest thing you think you learned during that time that helps keep you sober from food today?
What is it that I learned is that I'm not above anything. I definitely got humbled. I don't got this, so like I really have to be diligent with my recovery plan and, the actions that I take. And, like I still sometimes get the thought in my mind, oh, maybe I could just do this one day, or you know what I mean? My life, I really believe my life is in jeopardy when I'm active to the maximum extent of my food addiction and drug use. I might not live. And I got people to take care of. So like, I don't have the luxury of playing around with these things. And I got humbled. I learned what not to do. So hopefully I never have to go back to that lesson again, but I'm not cured. So I have to keep doing the work in order to keep myself like in recovery.
Yeah. Sometimes people say it works so well, I stopped doing it. We can't do that in recovery. And that's what I hear from you. And many of us in food addiction that are in recovery love food. We often love to cook. We love to make food for others. It's like I don't know, your family might have been like this. That's the way you show love to people. You make food and you make good food and they like it and they show love back. And your dad was a chef and you love to cook. And tell me about the cooking classes you do for Milestones.
Yeah. So I have always enjoyed cooking, and I come from a family of foodies and food addicts, whatever, borderline. But food was always a very big part of my family's life growing up. My dad was a chef. My mom was a very good cook. So always had good food, in the house. We also had like lots of sugary things in the house, which probably wasn't helpful to me. But I just, from an early age, enjoyed and had an interest in cooking. And I would sit and watch my mom and dad cook and be interested in learning how to make things. And just, I don't know, it's always been an interest of mine. Started watching the Food Network probably early on. And just, I have always had an interest in it. So in my time and my stints in Milestones as a client, I was known as a pretty good cook. And, at some point after I found my recovery, my initial recovery out in 2018, I had an interest in, I enjoyed working with others, sponsoring all of those things. And I'm just very passionate about this lifestyle, food addiction recovery lifestyle, and went to the INFACT school, got introduced to Esther, through Marty Lerner. I was interested in saying, oh, is there something I can do with this, possibly on a professional level, and got connected with her. And one day, Milestones over the years has always had an alumni typically doing a weekly cooking class, for the clients. And I have been a part of that class many times as a client, but they had a need for somebody to do that one week. Their person who was typically doing it wasn't available. And they asked me, oh, would you be willing to give this a try? They knew that I was pretty good at cooking. So I did it. And then I've done hundreds of them since. It just started, it wasn't like a permanent gig or anything. So it just started with almost like a service-oriented thing. And then it's become something that I just continue to do for 3.5 years. And I took a hiatus during my relapse. I stepped away from that during my year-long relapse. But
well, you're cooking, you're showing people that are coming in that are there for the 30-day residential treatment. Some are bulimic, some are binge eaters, some are anorexic. I assume you're teaching them that they can have really good food despite, the fact that it doesn't have sugar, that it has fat and so forth. What do you think the biggest misconceptions you're hearing as you teach this? What are the biggest misconceptions around food for people?
I think like some people think that, food, I think food has to be structured but food doesn't have to be boring. Food can be still interesting and diverse and wide ranging. So I teach a very wide variety of different types of cuisines and different recipes. I've got well over 100 different recipes that I show in these classes, ranging from Japanese to Latin, Mexican, all sort of vegetarian, roasts, everything in between. And, food can really be interesting without adding sugar and refined carbohydrates. You can really still do a lot. And I like to show that. And also meal planning and meal prep. It's a huge part of what I show and what I do in my life. And what we show in these classes is, how to plan, how to plan your week, how to plan your meals, how to bulk cook and bulk prepare food for people like me is medicine. Part of the medicine that I need to keep myself in remission from a deadly disease, my food addiction, part of that prescription is the food.
Yeah, it should be. Food is medicine, but we go to the doctor and they give you a pill for an ill, as they say. Let's just throw money at or throw pills and medicine at high blood pressure and diabetes, when really the medicine can be food. It was for me. So yeah, I have. We eat very healthy vegetables, fats, some carbs. I have and. I've never been healthier. You're at a healthy weight. I'm at a healthy weight. So it is possible to do it. But it's not a diet. We have to get to the causes and conditions of why we were doing it. Right.
Yeah. There's the food, and then there's, for many of us, underlying causes that are also triggers for us, whether it be childhood trauma or, whatever it is. I mean, but there's the food part, and I think like physical recovery from alcohol and drugs, that part has to be there before you can do the other work. I think the same thing is, in my opinion, not everybody agrees, but has to be with food too. So
let me go here. Kind of hadn't planned on going here, but let me ask you: was there trauma in your childhood? Why were you eating and drinking when you were a teenager? Was there anything you were trying to escape?
Well, I really, my parents have both passed on. My parents, I consider them to have been very good parents, but they went through their own challenges during particularly a 5-year period of my childhood. My dad was an alcoholic, and his alcoholism for a period of time was really raging, and my mom was really struggling with that, and she struggled with food addiction. She also went to some 12-step food meetings as well. And, there was a period in my childhood where there wasn't any safe place for me, not at the home. I struggled with a learning disability, so I really struggled in school. And I was an overweight kid. I really didn't feel good about myself as a kid. I mean, it was just for a period of time in my childhood, there was not a comfortable or safe place for me. And I think food was always there, but finding alcohol at 15, drinking alcoholically almost from the beginning, was something that helped me to escape from that.
Escape it. And, I went through some of the same things. And many of us in addiction recovery have had adverse childhood experiences, ACEs, as we call them. And this is part of the recovery process and what you have to find that you have to work through. I'm going to talk about the INFAC school, but one thing I had in my notes about you, which I related to, which is, I think you called it noism. You don't like to be know-it-all. I'm a know-it-all, and you don't like to be told what to do. So some of us, we're the toughest. We're the toughest, most stubborn of all, and we don't like to be told what to do. And we think we know everything, and we are disciplined. You give us a problem, we'll solve it. And sometimes that attribute can be helpful in business and whatnot. It can stand in our way. So talk about humility.
Yeah, I think being humbled by my addiction ultimately, at times in my life gave me the humility to follow directions from people who had the success that I wanted for myself. So that was true for me with AA and alcohol. Didn't know how to not drink and use drugs, and showed up, started seeing people who had the recovery and the hope that I wanted, and started hanging out with them and following directions. And with food, it was much harder. I'll say for me with food, it was much harder because it was harder for me to let go of the entirety of the drug and say, well, this is a problem, but this isn't a problem. And I can do some of this. I know that the sugar doesn't work for me, but I can do this. And how dare you tell me I can't do it? Who do you think you are? And I may not have said that, but that's what I was thinking. Just
yes,
how dare you? And that was a big part of it. I just wasn't willing or able to see some of the things that I needed to let go of and surrender. And when I guess the pain was great enough and the right person or people came into my world, God did for me what I couldn't do for myself and helped me surrender in a way that I'd never been able to before.
Yeah, me too. We want what they have. We want to get sober like they are. They're living a sober life, or they're living an abstinent life. And how are they doing it? I will do what you do to get what you have. And then you have to surrender and say, yes, ma'am, not yes, but.
And I was hopeless. I didn't believe I had it in me with the food to do that. I really did not think that I had the ability, because I had been at it for 10 years, well over 1,000 food meetings, multiple stints in food addiction treatment. Can't tell you how many therapists and professionals I saw specifically for the food stuff, and nothing ever stuck. So that's one thing. I didn't believe anything could work, but one day, just the right combination of support and plan kind of came into my world, and I started following it with a lot of help.
Ready and said I can't do it on my own. Just a couple more questions. If you could maybe briefly talk about the INFACT school you have. You attended the INFACT school, Esther Helga Gudmundsdóttir, based in Iceland, and all this is done online. Classes start September 2025, and those are open right now. You are a certified food addiction counselor. Tell me about what that means to you, what you learned there. And I have one more question after that. You could kind of briefly talk about the INFACT school.
Well, I had been working with people in a 12-step capacity up to that point, and I had an interest in doing more. And as I said, Marty suggested I connect with Esther, and a great decision. I graduated, in fact, in spring of 2021. And I just learned a tremendous amount about helping people at a higher level to recover from food addiction in a professional way that I just wasn't familiar with before. So how to diagnose folks, how to work with people as a counselor as opposed to a sponsor. And just was a great experience. For quite a while, I was doing individual coaching as well. These days, I just do what I do at Milestones. But I think it really helped me to help some people, and helps me to be a better counselor with the folks I work with at Milestones today. So I will also say Esther Helga is somebody I really admire so much. And she's actually somebody that I still do her supervision, years later. And she's somebody that I go to when I have issues or problems. I mean, she's been a great support for me personally as well as professionally. So I think if anybody's interested in pursuing that, many of the most successful people who are working in food addiction have come from the INFACT program. So highly suggest it.
Yeah, she's about over 100, 120 people graduate from the school. I go to the graduation online every time. So I have a lot of respect for her, and I work for her on this. I don't make a lot of money doing it, but this is my service. But yeah, infactschool.com. It is a great certification, and many of the students learn about themselves, right? About their own food addiction. Many food addicts come in there. Some are social workers. Some realize they didn't realize they had a food addiction when they come through. So
all different folks, people who are not food addicts, who are clinicians and come to learn about that, and people like me who are food addicts, and some of them even come in while they're struggling and, like learn about it. And yeah, so all different types of people.
Yeah. So I can tell the classes get close. They get to know each other, and it's, it can be, kind of an emotional, very moving experience, I think. Last question. We're out of time, but I always like to ask this question. What would you say to anyone listening, someone out there who might weigh 350 pounds, 400 pounds, or maybe isn't struggling with weight at all? They're bulimic, male or female, obese, overweight, can't stop eating, have been on many diets, and they've failed. What would you say to that person that might be listening?
I'd say just don't give up. Like you have to give up and surrender, like certain things, and we need help with that, but don't give up trying that. That's what I would say. Like, I really think I was as hopeless a case as can be. As I said, 10 years, thousands of me, just like there was no way that Mike was getting sober from this. Like literally, I had no hope, zero hope. And one day I just never stopped trying. I didn't want to, but one day it happened. It just happened for me unexpectedly, without imagining it could. And my life, the last 7 years, I've taken some steps back in that year-long relapse, but it's been the best time of my life. I'm the healthiest I've ever been at 52. I don't take any medication. I used to take all sorts of things, blood pressure, cholesterol, high blood sugar. I don't take any medications now. And I've got a life that I'm not a perfect person. Nobody is, but anyway.
Yeah, no, you look healthy, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you. Thanks for taking the time to do this today. I know Marty will like it, and Esther will love that you've agreed to do it. And it's a great podcast, and I hope it will help those listening who might be looking for a solution.
I hope so.
Yeah.
I hope so. I'm glad that I could do it.
Yeah, thanks for being a guest. Thank you for listening to the Food Addiction Podcast. We hope you both enjoyed the episode and learned more about how food addiction is recognized and treated. Please rate and write a review on this podcast and share it with others. If you or someone you know is suffering from the disease of food addiction, there is a solution with trained professionals at the INFACT School. You can become a food addiction informed and certified as a food addiction professional, as well as receive your own treatment through the various training, certification, and treatment programs offered at the INFACT School. Go to infactschool.com. That's INFACT school.com to learn more.